Hey, what's up YouTube? Welcome to another video about the post that GGG wrote. Yesterday I was happily minding my own business. I was having a blast running some dunes, and then someone told me, did you see the latest GGG post? I'm like, wow, another GGG post? Maybe this is the one. Maybe this is the one that brings it all back. Harvest is fixed. Reforged key prefix and suffix is back. Harvest divines are back. Loot is fixed. Lake of Kalandra is finally rewarding, and boy oh boy, did I get a surprise. And I'm actually just, I don't even know what to say anymore at this point. They just keep doubling down or tripling down or octupling down on their vision, and they keep asking for feedback from the community. But I do feel like the community has given a lot of feedback regarding the harvest crafts, regarding the state of juicing in the game, regarding the rewards of the Kalandra League, and regarding the reward and risk ratio in the Lake of Kalandra. And it just seems like they say they hear our feedback, but nothing they are doing is addressing our feedback. And this is actually kind of sad, because let's go look at the post by Bex, and let me see right here. So let's go look at right here. Don't mind the browser. This is actually the best browser ever made. Microsoft Edge, right? You know, it has an edge over Chrome. So right here, Bex does say that she actually says, I have raised the community's perspective on these changes as much as possible during these discussions, but it's falling upon deaf ears. Like, that's pretty much what she should probably be writing, because the community is giving feedback, but none of this feedback is actually being taken into account. So like I said, GGG posted an update where they gave us a follow-up to our helpful feedback. They say they are constantly monitoring and discussing things, and there will probably be another post, as there are some topics which were not discussed. So as you will see in this breakdown of what they said, you will see that there's certain topics like juice mapping and loot in general that were not fully discussed in this post. So let's get straight into the post and see why this post officially empty any hope I have for 3.19. So first off, the post started pretty good. They started talking about Archnemesis, and a lot of these changes I do agree with. They decided to nerf the heralding minions in Delve. It was pretty OP. They acknowledged that their community feedback about the quality currency and flasks. So pretty much a lot of people complain how all they get for loot are whetstones, armor scraps, and flasks. So they're pretty much discussing further, but they have come to an agreement more or less that there will be changes to the quality currency and flash dropping. Now, the next part is that they also acknowledge that there is a problem perhaps with the variance of item drops, and this is pretty much people finding the God Touch mobs of Solar's Touch, Innocence Touch, and Shikari's Touch, and then having a Magic Find Color come in and then culling it, and then getting like multiple divines with the currency. So they are discussing whether they want to lower the variance of item drops. I'm not really sure if this means currency or not, or if it means the MF culling meta. So it remains to be seen what they actually meant by that statement. It could just mean also uniques in general, and how the T0 uniques are too rare. But I don't really know what they mean by that. Now, in the past, I did mention how they said that Archnemesis mods for certain bosses that don't actually drop any loot at all are now capped to 2 Archnemesis modifiers. So if you're doing like the Belfry, or not Belfry, but Cortex boss, in the intermission, those rares can only have 2 Archnemesis modifiers. And this is a good change and a step in the right direction, because no one wants to fight rares that are actually harder than the boss itself. Now, this next part is pretty funny. They mentioned how permanent marks are annoying, but they cannot fix it currently. Well, I have a fix for them, which is just remove the whole marking aspect from the mobs. Like, there's no reason, and there's no real like insane added difficulty from the mobs being able to add a mark. So specifically right here, let's go see where they mention Archnemesis modifiers. So right here, they're aware of feedback around monsters applying permanent marks feeling frustrating, particularly in the context of Archnemesis mods in Delve, but also in other areas of the game. This issue has some technical complications around it that makes it tricky to improve, but that is something we'll be working on. So best solution for now is definitely to just remove the permanent marks completely. Now, after the Archnemesis stuff is when it starts taking a dark turn. Now, here is where they mention Kalandra League, and first off, they mentioned something that's not really that applicable. we can now use rock formations to hide from enemy attacks, which sounds good and all. So you can pretty much hide behind this little rock here, and then you'll be fine. Now, they're trying to investigate whether the difficult to reward ratio is correct. So right now, is there a risk reward? Like, are you feeling like you are rewarded for the difficulty of the lake? Now, I do know, and I haven't personally done the lake that much, but a lot of people say that like a reward or difficulty 10 plus is like equal to 60% plus delirium or 100%. So they're not really getting much reward at all. And I don't really think they really need to analyze whether the difficult to reward ratio is correct, because no one is getting rewarded from the lake. So if your reward is almost 0, then how could the ratio ever be correct? They are, however, making the reflecting mist 50% more common, so you can find more reflecting mist in the Lake of Kalandra. And this is pretty good because some of the jewelry is actually pretty nuts. And if you're playing a build like Doriani's prototype, the reflecting mist is actually pretty build enabling and feels pretty good to run into. And some of the jewelry is actually worth a lot. But the next part is the main problem. Currently, GGG feels general drops from the lake are okay, but that past league content is not rewarding enough. Now, I don't really know how good the general drops from the lake are, but the fact that there's some SSF players who say that the lake is not worth doing, and if an SSF player says that the rewards are bad, you know the rewards are bad. So there is no doubt in my mind, based on the feedback that the community has given, that the rewards in the lake are not good. Yesterday I heard Grimro was actually testing some tablets, and he was making 10 chaos per tablet or something like that, or I don't even know how much it was. But it was an absolutely pitiful amount. Right now the lake is just not worth doing unless you're trying to do challenges. And the next part is kind of funny, right? They're asking for feedback from the community about which past league encounters are not rewarding enough. And this part is kind of annoying. I do know that we're considered beta testers a lot of times, but at this point in the league, we are 2 weeks in. They should have the data of what is dropping from the lake and from these past league content, and they can adjust it accordingly, right? So how could they know that the loot from the league is fine if they don't know if the loot from the past league encounters are not fine? It's just paradoxical and doesn't really make sense to me. So you can see here, right here, they're saying, we're keen for specific feedback around which past league encounters in the lake don't feel quite right in terms of reward. Please include as much detail as possible about your experiences. So I feel like at this point, we should be past that. And I feel like all of the past league encounters are probably not rewarding enough, judging by what people are saying, especially Catalysts from Metamorph are still really bad. I even watched some SSF hardcore stream and they actually skipped the Metamorph because they pretty much just said it's not worth doing. The Legion also looked really bad. The Breach also looked really bad. So some little feedback is all of the past league encounters probably need to be upped a lot to make it more rewarding. And the risk to reward ratio is atrocious because there's no reward. Now, if you thought I was disappointed by the Kalandra League, man, the Harvest literally destroyed all hope I had for 3.19. It officially ended it in terms of if I think that this player could get, if this game can get a player-based boost. Now, a lot of people do mention, oh, maybe most of the players like the league and they don't really mind the changes. Well, if you really think that's the case, let's just go to Steam charts. And we're at 54,000 players. And this is during the peak time while I'm recording this video. The retention rate is almost, I think it's at 38% or something right now. It is atrocious, to say the least. So this is actually a change that I was positive that they would add back into the game. If you asked me to bet money, I would have bet money that they would have added Reforged Key Prefix and Suffix back in this league or in 3.20. Now, to start off, they did do something good. They took this post on Reddit that said, you can now see how much life force you have at the Hoarder crafting station, and they're going to implement it. Frankly, this probably should have been implemented at the start, but it is nice to see that they're actually adding quality of life still into the game. Now, what they say is that they are aware of disappointment about certain harvest crafts being removed, so they are aware of it. They know that the community is upset about how you can't harvest divine, you can't reforge key prefix suffix, you can't aug influence, you can't remove non-influence, add influence. However, they say the crafts will not return since harvest is now tradable. Now, this statement right here is completely out of touch. Harvest has been tradable since Ritual Harvest with TFT. Now you might say TFT, no one really used it, it's not that big. Everyone who crafted at the high end probably used TFT to some degree, or they used some way to get harvest crafts from someone else. Now, also another thing is that they said that lots of discussions were made about this topic, but Harvest's crafting potential without being gated by rarity is just too high. So what do they even mean by this? Do they mean that the rarity in terms of life force? Because they could pretty much just increase the life force cost, and then the craft is pretty much gated by rarity. And the craft was never gated by rarity. If you ever wanted to farm Reforged Key Prefix and Suffix, if you buy any of the seeds or the sextants revolving harvest and the rarity of the crops, you will know that it was very, very, very deterministically easy to farm Reforged Key Prefix and Suffix. In the end, I hate how they go about this because it just feels so bad as a player, right? Because you are just trying to understand why they're doing these changes and they just come up with excuses instead of just saying straight up, we feel like this harvest craft was too powerful in the past and we want to nerf it because we don't feel like crafting should be this deterministic. But what they basically say to us is that, oh, harvest is now tradable, when in fact in the past it was tradable. And then they say stuff like, it's not gated by rarity anymore, and it was never gated by rarity. Like Reforged Key Prefix and Suffix was a joke to farm in Trade League, at least. Now, if you think like this is such a extreme take from someone, I included this post right here on Twitter from Ben, who's probably one of the best PoE players, and he is very, very supportive of GGG for most things. Now, he has even said that this league's harvest is not too bad. He's even said that loot is fine, and he is probably right about most of the stuff he says. And even he says was about to turn stream on, but this most recent news post has killed any desire to log into Path of Exile today. And that's pretty much the same way for me. After I saw this, I didn't really want to log in or keep playing. But it's not like I don't enjoy the game. I just know how this will be perceived by the community and how they will think that this is a disaster. Because this is probably one of the few things that I thought GGG would give in and actually add back into the game. But I was just completely wrong. Now, they did add some changes that could help out. They're making Eldritch Exalted Orbs, Eldritch Chaos Orbs, and Eldritch Orbs of the Annulment more common in lower areas, or they can drop in lower areas, and they're also buffing the drop rate. Now, they are also aware that Eldritch Currency only apply to certain items and are discussing whether it may one day apply to other gear slots. So as you may know, Eldritch Chaos is pretty much Reforged Key Prefix and Reforged Key Suffix disguise. Eldritch Chaos says, if Syrian Exarch is dominant, reroll prefix modifiers. If either of Worlds is dominant, reroll suffix modifiers. Now the way this works is you have to be able to put Eldritch Currency on. And right now, as you can read from here, Eldritch Currency only applies to body armor, boots, gloves, or helmets. Now, the problem with this currency is you can't actually use it on influence items, and there are a lot of builds in the game that rely on using like Shaper, Elder, or the Conqueror influence. So some of those include In-Stacking Wander and CDR builds with Shaper boots. So you can see here, it is a lot harder to craft, and this little band-aid fix is never going to be enough. And what I don't really understand is why would you have Eldritch Chaos Orbs in the game if you want to never add Reforged Key Prefix and Suffix back into the game? Some of the choices just don't really make sense to me personally. Now, overall, I know this sounds like a doom and gloom video, but I do think the state of the game is better than it's ever been. Or not, okay, the state of the game is not better than it's ever been. What am I even saying? Holy moly, I am literally bought into the propaganda. Okay, the game is still playable and still fun to some degree. And I do want to, so Ventura actually brought up a really good point. And this is what I agree. The game is getting better overall, but the direction of the game is bad. So right here, he says the new Atlas of 3.17 was, for me in terms of content, the best league PoE has since 2016. And I do think they are making good changes to the game. The Atlas passive tree is amazing. I don't think anyone can really argue. The new Atlas is so much less bloated, it's so much faster to progress than the Watchstone system in the past. So the game has gotten better, but it is also possible to agree that the direction of the game is going somewhere bad, whether it's no loot, whether the crafting is also going bad, whether it's a league mechanic not being rewarding. both of those things can exist at the same time. So you can still kind of enjoy the game, but also be very, very displeased with the direction that it is heading and the direction of the current league. Now, having lower variance and item drops feel better than higher variance RNG. That is true. A lot of people like mapping and seeing their net worth go up, not go down until they hit a lottery drop. But I do hope they don't kill MF calling God touch mobs without replacing it with something with equivalent overall rewards. I could definitely see them just nerfing the God touch mobs and replacing it with something that is completely underwhelming. Now, Kalandra League needs to be buffed. I need to actually do my challenges, right? So you can see here, I haven't done the lake because I'm still waiting for them to buff the lake. I haven't used this yet. I haven't done anything in the lake. Well, where's the other big one? Discover the lake. Oh, I discovered a little bit of it. Form the lake. I haven't done any of that. Overcome the lake. I haven't done that. Shatter the lake. I haven't done that. I haven't done anything in the lake because I'm still waiting for buffs from the lake. It's crazy to think that the general drops from the lake are okay when you have multiple high-end SSF players telling you that they don't feel like they're being rewarded enough to do the lake. If SSF people can't justify doing the lake, then there's no way people in trade can justify doing it. Now, crafting has taken multiple steps backwards with the confirmation of the permanent removal of certain harvest crafts. Now, this part is just sad. I do think it is possible in the future. They come up with other ways to craft outside of harvest, but until that is known, it is a step in the wrong direction. And the biggest problem is harvest crafts are always tradable before, and you can definitely gate the rarity by increasing the life force cost. To think that harvest crafts were not tradable and that people weren't using the TFT Discord is crazy. The TFT Discord has over 320,000 members in it. Almost everyone who crafted gear and was knowledgeable about it was probably using TFT to some degree. And his follow-up post has officially emptied my copium tank. And at this point, maybe 3.20 will be better. So this is pretty much me saving up all my lakes, waiting for the one day that they buff it. And then this is GGG. It means GGG is afraid of player power, and then they're saying, no, we're not. And then they scare them with reforged key prefixes. And it's actually crazy because all the community wants is reforged key prefixes and suffixes to be back, the lake rewards to be drastically buffed. Like, who even cares if it's buffed too much because it's a temporary league mechanic. They're supposed to be OP. And then they want reward or loot to not feel so RNG. And probably the removal of the MF calling meta, and people will be praising GGG. But thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you still enjoy the league. I hope you find more Exalted Orbs, more Mage Bloods, more Headhunters than me. And see you next time. Bye.